Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I'm Colin Tessier, joined for the first time in what feels like ages by my partner in crime, John Clark. John, how you doing, man? It's been a while.
This is my first post show without an appendix in my lifetime, so it's a special occasion. I'm finally back and feeling better after like 2 to 3 weeks of being away. But don't fret, I was watching NXT and Raw all the time, so I'm caught up with what's going on. Tonight was a heavily centered show around the female roster. I don't know if that's good or bad. I guess we'll talk about that. But yeah, thanks for welcoming me back. It's good to be back, and I'm feeling a lot better.
I'm definitely glad to hear it. Pretty much every show, everyone has been sending their well wishes and just to talk a little
But
bit.
and also on top of that, I've been watching and I've been seeing your comments. So thanks everybody that's been commenting the past couple weeks.
You've definitely been missed, and we're all very, very glad to have you back and here to talk about NXT 2.0. As you were saying, definitely a show that was very much centered around the women's division tonight. Um, I like the idea. Like, that's obviously it's great in general. Like, it's women's wrestling is great. Like, it's good to have to feature it. There are plenty of shows in general that maybe don't shine as much of a spotlight on women's wrestling. So, like, I love that. Like, to begin with,
There
there's part.
was there was 8 parts to the show tonight, and 6 of the 8 parts were centered on females. The only part of the show that was not centered on females tonight was the Solo Sokoa, Cameron Grimes, Carmelo Hayes segment, and then the Joe Gacy segment. Everything else involved a female superstar.
Yeah, and I like that. I guess in some ways, I just feel like. And I don't know, we're several months into NXT 2.0, but like in some ways it feels like it's still kind of a transitional period. Like not they don't have maybe the established depth that they once did. So I feel like this is it's weird to kind of do that with 2.0 because like like a year ago they had like Io Shirai and Raquel Gonzalez and stuff like that. It felt like a little more fitting in some ways. And I'm not trying to knock the talent now. I'm saying like it feels like they haven't quite been developed or showcased before to that extent. And and that way it's good they were tonight. Brian says great show tonight, felt like the women's night. They were showcased. Yeah, I like that. Overall, I thought the matches were good. We had a very good main event match. The show opened with a women's match, women's tag title match. The ones with the women's breakout tournament started tonight as well. So lots to talk about there. But we can go in chronological order. So we started with the tag title match. Toxic Attraction facing Roxanne Perez and Wendy Chu. I've talked about it before on the show. I'm biased. I'm a big fan of Roxanne, dated back to her time in Ring of Honor. So always really cool to see her in these past couple weeks being on the show in the first place and getting featured right away. It's just I'm happy to see that, and the crowd seems to be really rallying around her as well. They're chanting her name. And again, this is only a couple weeks into her time on NXT, so that was definitely pretty cool to see. A fairly good match. Mandy Rose interferes and helps Toxic Attraction win and retain the titles. And after the match, Wendy Chu tries to get revenge, and Toxic just beats her down to stand tall, both during the match and then afterwards. So for the match itself here, Steven says no one's going to beat Toxic Attraction, and DJ says Toxic Attraction is the attraction. I mean, at this point, nobody really seems to be a clear cut, next in line to challenge them in the first place and to let alone win the titles. So, John, what do you think about this match and where we're at with Toxic Attraction at this point? I mean, we can kind of thread in what happened with Toxic Attraction later in the show, which was kind of an indicator of where at least where Mandy Rose could be heading.
So a lot of the action I've noticed within this feud over the past couple weeks has been just downright silly. A little too silly to take seriously. I thought that Roxanne Perez continues to deliver week in and week out. You definitely know more about her than I do because I didn't really see any of her before Ring of Honor or anything like that. But I definitely believe all of those sentiments now has been performing on top of the level that she should be to be a top NXT female talent, especially for her age. Now, when it comes to the match itself tonight, I thought it was okay, but I thought that towards the end, it was a little anticlimactic. The action kind of fell apart. I don't know where this is going. I don't like the comments here about nobody's going to be Toxic Attraction. I mean, somebody has to at some point, but I'm not sure that's a known thing yet, even within their creative room.
Yeah, and that's I think that applies to both Mandy and the tag team champions here, GG and JC. But to go on about Roxy for a minute, I mean or Roxanne, sorry. Even just I think she's 20 years old, and it's crazy to me that she's already really taken to WWE. I mean, usually even we were talking about it maybe the first time she was on the show. Someone like Taya Valkyrie or the time Frankie Monet, like that, she needed some time to really adjust to the WWE system because it's very different and that's very, very common. Roxanne has taken off, very, very quickly, very smoothly, just really adjusted, and she feels like a natural. And I've been impressed with what I'm seeing so far. Admittedly, again, I'm biased, but I'm really, really enjoying her run so far. And it's ironic, like I've made it clear I'm not the biggest fan of Wendy Chu. So I was kind of rooting for Roxanne to win tonight, but I was like, I also don't really want her and Wendy to be champions. So that was a bit of a new dynamic for me. But I mean, I could see them getting a rematch at least. Not to say they'll be the next champions, but Mandy's blatant interference definitely could set that up. We do know that Roxanne will be in the women's breakout tournament. That will continue next week. So I think she's the favorite to win that. We'll talk about that tournament in a minute. But yeah, I mean, if you're Toxic Attraction, someone's got to beat them eventually. Don't know who exactly that will be, again, for both Mandy and the tag champions here. Later in the show, we had Indy Hartwell backstage mourning some mysterious tragedy, John, that they have not referenced on air. Looking sadly and longingly at her phone, and then Toxic Attraction comes up and says, Mandy says, like, "Oh, I can't imagine what you're going through. It must be so sad." And for a minute, Indy's like, "Oh, that's so nice of you." And then Mandy says, "No, I literally mean I can't imagine what it must be like. No man has ever left me." And John, to that I said, like, bro, Dexter didn't leave, okay? Dexter got fired. That's a very big difference. I made me a little upset. I was like, I don't know. It feels like they're kind of going down that road where like he left, and that would mean the index is done. And I'm like, that's at least like leave the memories alone, okay? Just like I don't know. I feel like that was an implication. I didn't love that. But what this did seemingly set up some kind of even a one-off match for Mandy and Indy Hartwell here. I think that would be fun. I think Indy's very, very talented. Nesha wants Indy to be the champion. Brian's is hopefully will give Indy a push. I would like that feud as well. I mean, we do know we've got this kind of several weeks in the making a setup of Wendy versus Mandy Rose. So I could see like a one-off match for Indy here, but could you see potentially Indy or Wendy maybe being the one to dethrone Mandy, or do you think it might go another way? Someone else
Uh,
on the roster.
Indy, I could see, not Wendy, but Indy, I could definitely see. She's had the worst luck out of anybody with people leaving. I mean, Johnny and Candace, and then Persia, and then Dexter, and it's like everybody that she's paired with is like leaving, so it's almost like a jinx to be paired with her. So I'm curious to see it. It's clear they're going to keep her on NXT for now, but whether she actually takes any momentum and runs with it to become champion remains to be seen. But I'm not convinced that that's going to happen. But I do agree with your proposal that we could have a one-off. That would make sense.
I agree. Shout out to Eddie here for pointing out that India's lost everything. I mean, every member of the Way is gone, at least from NXT. Austin Theory or Theory now is on Raw doing good things, but otherwise, again, Persia, kind of a borderline member, or at least like her partner, tag team partner, released. Dexter released. Johnny and Candice have both left the company. That's just sad, man. Like the Way was so good. I enjoyed them so much, and now it's just kind of, fallen by the wayside, both by I guess beneficial circumstances and not so beneficial circumstances. But shout out to the Way. I enjoyed that. Their stable overall, very, very much. Good times in NXT. But DJ kind of wondering what's next for Indy outside of the title scene here. Maybe could we see her get paired up with Duke Hudson? I mean, speaking for myself, like maybe down the road, but my initial reaction is like, no, just like leave her alone. Don't put it with someone else like right away. In terms of like a a relationship kind of thing. If they want to be like friends or something, like fine, but like my heart's not ready to see it in another relationship with Duke Hudson or anybody on TV at this point. I don't know. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I would agree. definitely.
And also for Indy, Eddie's saying Indy should go to the main roster sooner. She's 25. She's too good, especially with the NXT 2.0 kind of thing. I mean, I agree. She's already pretty seasoned. She's been featured for a while. And I do think there's some concern about, her potentially kind of falling, getting lost in the mix here. Someone like a Roderick Strong that we've seen, although he's been featured a little more lately, but like that, where the veterans kind of be, again, they take a back seat a little bit, and I don't want to see that for India. I think she's way too good for that. But regardless, at least tonight we did see some kind of indication of something with Mandy Rose, and that I think I'd be entertained by that. I think that could be very good. But as we were talking about, lots of stuff in the women's division tonight. The women's breakout tournament officially started, so we had all the competitors come out on stage and they're introduced. Then we had the first match: Fallon Henley versus Sloane Jacobs. I believe Sloane Jacobs is 19 years old, which is crazy to me. It's like, wow, like that's amazing to see that. Like, I mean, Roxy's 20, and I'm very impressed by that. And then Sloane Jacobs is 19. It's like, damn, like if she was, I'd be curious to see what her story is like and how she wound up here, because like that's just remarkable to get in that high profile of a position. I don't know how long she's been at it, but obviously she's been working hard and doing the right thing. So shout out to her for making it this far in the first place. I thought this was a pretty good match. I assumed in some ways for this one at least that Fallon Henley would win. She's been featured on NXT so far. Not to say that every person that's been featured is favored, but that is kind of the setup of this tournament. Like Fallon Henley, obviously Nikita Lyons, Roxanne Perez, and I would also say Last Legend, maybe to a lesser extent. They all seem like at least good bets to advance at least to the next round. And we saw that happen with Fallon Henley here. DJ thinks that Fallon's going to win the whole tournament, and Nesha actually agrees. But I mean, I thought this was a good match. I was impressed by Fallon Henley. I feel like we haven't gotten to see a whole lot of her in the ring on NXT. She's been obviously like Briggs and Jensen's love interest / friend. I don't like it's kind of a manager or third member of their team kind of thing. So this is the first time that we've really gotten to see her in a prolonged singles match, at least in something like this. So I was fairly impressed by that. I don't think she's my pick to win the whole thing. Again, I'm very biased. I'm going with Roxanne. I also do think Nikita Lyons is probably like 1A and 1B with like my personal favorite and also likely contender being Roxanne. I think Nikita Lyons is right there as well. We'll talk about the second qualifying match in a minute. But John, any thoughts on Fallon Henley here and also Sloane Jacobs potentially?
I thought it was an all right match, but I'm not convinced that the winner is going to come from this match. I agree with you on the winner of the tournament, but I do think Nikita will also be in the finals. She'll be on the other side of the bracket in the finals. She is probably the favorite in the tournament, though, but I think the writing's on the wall. It's going to come down to her and Roxanne. They've been the most impressive in-ring workers from the latest crop of talent. And I think that they're both going to make each other look better in the ring and kind of be like this generation's, Sasha and Bailey or whatever, that they come up together and they're going to feud and they're going to kind of be like a big deal, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I like that. And plus some more picks here. We got DJ picking Nikita, Brian picking Roxanne, Steven picking Nikita as well. Seems like we got a bunch of people kind of maybe some divided opinion here, or in the early going at least. And I guess we can segue right into the second breakout tournament match here. It was Nikita Lyons versus Ariana Grace. Now that is Santino Morella's daughter, Bianca Corelli, in real life, her pre-WWE name. In some ways, they announced the bracket like maybe call it 2-ish hours before NXT tonight, and they had the bracket there, and I was a little surprised to see Ariana in the opening round against Nikita. I thought she'd at least get like one win in the tournament because she's someone that's, even as I don't know about her very much individually, but just the Santino Morella connection alone, it's like, oh, I would imagine that there's some kind of some investment in that, or like that they might want to kind of push her maybe more than a total stranger, if that makes sense. Like she's a legacy wrestler. I feel like usually you see some kind of I'm not trying to say preferential treatment, but I feel like they'd want to kind of at least give her a shot to kind of stand out a little bit more right away. You're taking a loss here. I mean, being in the tournament's great, but like losing in the first round, it was a kind of hard fought match, but it wasn't like this 10-minute like, oh, it's back and forth epic battle. It was like, no, it's fairly kind of, this was Nikita Lyons' match to lose. I mean, again, we were just talking about Nikita, even when they announced the bracket, feels like one of the favorites to win the whole thing. So not a great draw in the bracket to begin with. So maybe not the best start for Ariana in that case. Not the biggest fan of her gimmick. I think some of the gimmicks for some of these competitors in the tournament aren't great. You've got Ariana Grace being like the former beauty pageant contestant turned fighter, which is like kind of weird. And like, I don't know. I'm not really here for that. One of the other ones, I don't have their names down yet. One of them is like a business executive. She was wearing like a button down and like a mini skirt, kind of. Like it seemed like very like Divas era, like I guess if that makes sense. Like it seems a little odd. And I'm not trying to like dismiss or knock anyone before we even see them wrestle. I'm saying like the gimmick itself for both of them in this case, you know, I don't know, rubbed me a little bit the wrong way. But Nikita wins. Good showing for her. So definitely she's on track to advance in the tournament here. I don't have the bracket in front of me right now, but I'll continue with the rest of the first round matches, presumably next week. Those will be the rest of the quarterfinals.
Yeah,
So,
it's Lash Legend versus Tatum Paxley and Roxanne Perez versus Kiana James.
okay, I think that's the business exec one. So I don't know, but I would imagine Roxanne's a heavy favorite in that one. But DJ said that he could see Paxley in the finals, but not really 100% on it. I mean, again, Paxley maybe to a lesser extent. She's been featured. She was like a borderline member of Diamond Mine. Maybe like a dark horse to the finals. But any thoughts on Nikita Lyons? Not to be redundant, but we're just talking about how she's probably the favorite. And then maybe any thoughts on the rest of the first round matches there, John?
No, I think it's mostly predictable from what we've seen. Things have turned out the way that they're expected as far as the two heavy favorites to meet in the finals. So really nothing to write home about there. I think everything's on pace right now with what we're expecting.
Yeah. So we'll have a better kind of lay of the land next week with the rest of the first round matches, but I do think pretty safe to say at this point, the two heavy favorites are Nikita and Roxanne. Last Legend isn't featured as well, and I think like she might be to a lesser extent again maybe like a dark horse. I could see her getting to the finals at least, but I'm pretty confident right now about Roxanne and Nikita at least getting the finals. That's a hard match to pick, but we'll wait and see what happens with that. Hey, might as well stick in the women's division here. We've got DJ saying, what about that entrance for Alba Fire tonight? Both on commentary and in the promos, all the fire puns, like it's about like igniting her rebirth and like something about a blaze and stuff like that. It's every single fire pun you can imagine. Then she has this entrance, John, and she's carrying like this some kind of like sword thing. She's got the like cane entrance lighting, like the red, and there's fire, and there's like the Titantron is like her letter in flames. Pretty cool entrance, not gonna lie. Not a big fan of the name changes to begin with, but at least like pretty darn cool entrance. She beats Amari Miller. Amari Miller suffered a pretty unfortunate injury on the March 1st episode. I think it was a concussion, so she was out of action for now it's already May, so she was on the shelf for a little bit there. So good to see her here back in the ring in the first place. Just to begin with, facing out Alba Fire, formerly known as Kaylee Ray here. Pretty dominant win for Kaylee Ray or Alba Fire. And Brian says he wants to see Alba Fire get back in the title picture. I mean, she's had a pretty stop and start time on NXT Prime so far, but she is a former UK Women's Champion, so she still does have that pedigree here. But John, thoughts on Alba Fire's new rebirth, if you will, on NXT?
I think that the way that this match went with Alba Fire, where I was surprised to hear the crowd not chanting her old name. I don't know about you, but I was like, wow, they're actually going to let it go for once, and I think they did. Now, uh, I am not really that caught up to speed on Miller besides what she's done in NXT, but she certainly has impressed. To see her come back tonight kind of randomly without any hype was kind of weird. They didn't really make a big deal out of it. But I think that just kind of defines what level she's on right now. Now, Alba Fire, though, I think she could be a challenger for Mandy Rose, even though she already was, but under the new name, like they're not going to obviously mention that. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. They're like framing her as this like new character, but like it's a rebirth. Like it's like they know we know that's Kaylee Ray, but they're not really like acknowledging that. I don't know. But we'll wait and see. It was a good start here tonight. And again, good to see Amari Miller. You mentioned, like not a lot of fanfare, but like she was largely used like as an enhancement level of talent by and large. And then getting hurt kind of, not that it was like right when 2.0 started, but like, the past couple months have been pretty important for 2.0. So I I think she's gonna. I mean, we'll wait and see how it goes for like her spot on the card right now. But overall, again, it's just good to have her back on the show because concussions are a big deal. Like, and anytime that happens, like they're very freak injuries because like someone like Samoa Joe was out for months and months on end and several obstacles with his return to the ring. So at least she was able to kind of return in fairly short order. So that in itself is a win. But let's keep it rolling. Still in the women's division here. We got some comments about Saray's medal tonight. So Saray wound up joining forces with Andre Chase. She I guess, kind of transferred into Chase University here because she's been feuding with Tiffany Stratton. Andre Chase has been feuding with Grayson Waller. Now Stratton and Waller have joined forces. And my gosh, John, NXT has paired the two most annoying people on the show. And it's... I don't know, like they're so good at the roles they play, but they're so annoying. I'm like, I don't want to see them because like they just aggravate me so much. But I thought like, the job well done. So like a bit of a weird dynamic in that sense, but they work very well together because the characters are just so annoying. But then because of that, Saray joins forces with Andre Chase. They have a mixed tag team match. Saray, of course, has her medallion that gives her powers. And they have her entrance where usually in her entrance, that's when she transforms from schoolgirl to anime superhero or something. And during the entrance, Buddy Hayward, who apparently speaks Japanese conveniently because he's able to talk for Saray during a backstage promo, he also transforms, going from Buddy Hayward, muscular student guy, to guy that has a wig, a crop top, and glasses. Don't know what that's about. Steven says no comment on that entrance there, but I thought the match itself was pretty fun. Saray like blasted Grayson Waller with a dropkick at one point. That was pretty fun. And then Stratton dove onto, I think, maybe it would have been an Andre Chase. A little tease of some intergender wrestling there. In the end, Saray pins Stratton to get the win there. So a little bit of a revenge win for Saray, but I thought it was fun. Like I haven't loved this character for Saray, but I'm a big fan of Chase University. Andre Chase, I think that's just consistently fun, and Grayson Waller and Tiffany getting some comeuppance tonight. I think that it's a winning scenario all around.
Yeah, this was more fun than I think it had any right to be. If looking back at it, I think the chemistry as a team is just as you said, it fits, even though it's arrogant and annoying. Uh, it was also a nice surprise to see Saray get revenge and get kind of a victory there. I think there needs to be another one-on-one singles match that Saray is the clear winner in. I think that would help her kind of elevate her to that next level. Now, Grayson Waller is just annoying, even though he has gotten somewhat of a reaction as the weeks go by. Andre Chase, still not digging it. This mix of a face and a heel isn't doing any favors, so I'm not really sure what to think of all of that.
I'm liking it. I see what you're saying, that there are some parts of it that are a little hard to get into, and I guess I'd even thought that I've like assumed in some ways that he's become a baby face, but they haven't made that like abundantly clear because he still acts like a heel. He's still like yelling at students and stuff like that. So like I'm with you there. But Steven says Waller and Stratton belong together. I mean, John, you and I agree. Grayson, he plays the part so well. He's just he's an annoying guy, and Stratton's they're both annoying gimmicks, and like they work together in that sense. But it's a little bit hard to watch sometimes. Is like they're like she's got the daddy's girl thing going. Grayson Waller, very, very cocky and arrogant kind of thing there. But two comments here about Tiffany Stratton's in-ring improvement. Eddie saying that her in-ring skills are impressive since she's so new, and likewise Brian saying that she's improving. So definitely, worth pointing that out. I mean, I will agree that some of her first matches were a little rough, and again, I thought she looked fairly good here. And I just overall I thought it was a good match. Nothing like what stood out to me as being bad. So fun match. I would agree. I think in both cases, Stratton versus Saray should probably get another singles match. And also I would say Andre Chase versus Grayson in this case. I mean, that would make sense in both cases. I would imagine we're going to get that because that seems like a very natural extension of it. But more changes here in terms of alliances and moving and shaking here. Damon Kemp joined Diamond Mind. Diamond Mine, and Deidre says Damon Kemp looks like he's going to be a star. So the way they set this up, Roderick Strong was backstage talking to the Creed brothers last week. Roderick helped the Creed brothers beat the Viking Raiders. And tonight they were not happy about that. They said, like, it's a tainted win. They were upset because they want to win that way. And so the next week they're going to face the Viking Raiders again. And they make clear they don't want Roderick's help. They want to do it themselves. They want to actually get the win. So as it turns out, that was Viking Raiders' first loss in NXT. That's the way they were framing it. I'll try to fact check that. But if so, that's very impressive. And then Roderick Strong said, okay, before that match, I have someone that I want to help you. Get ready for that. He was saying it's like this really renowned wrestler, like a Pan-American like grappler or something like that, but listing all his accolades. And then he said, a University of Minnesota graduate. And for a split second, I was like, Gable Steveson? Is he on NXT now? I thought they got drafted to Raw. Like, what are we doing? And then it's his brother, and then who's been renamed Damon Kemp, and I didn't even realize it was his brother till after the fact. I think his name's Bobby Steveson, and I think ironically he was there first, and then Gable signed. But it's interesting. I mean, the name connection there alone, at least not his WWE name, but like knowing that's Gable's brother, it's pretty crazy. Just to know that he's got that kind of recognition for him. It looks great. DJ says it looks like he's going to be a star. But again, this is just one of multiple changes for Dynamite lately. Of course, unfortunately, Malcolm Bivens got released. Very big bummer about that, but that makes it pretty obvious they needed some new energy, some new member for the group, and that's in this case Damon Kemp. So, any thoughts on the new iteration of Dynamite in this case?
It should be a good addition to help him get his feet wet. I'm more concerned about Roderick Strong and his position in the company right now. The rumor has been going around that he kind of wants out of the company, but they didn't really grant that yet. But he's still working. So it's kind of like, where does he stand right now? How long is he going to be there? Are they going to phase him out? A lot of unknowns right now to really form a solid opinion about where the group could be in the future.
I agree. That's kind of the big variable at this point. The report was that he's requested his release, got denied. The report was that they have plans for him, and now it seems to suggest that that he's kind of secure. But at this point, nobody's really secure because anything can happen. But at this point, he's still being featured with the group, and that again, I guess we'll have to wait and see how it goes. DJ wonders, could we see Kemp replace Strong as the leader if he does get released potentially at some point, or could be somebody else? I mean, I can't really speak to that. This is the first time we've seen Kemp. I think there are any number of ways they could go with it. Steven says we could even see the Creeds and Diamond break up, because the Creeds could become so frustrated with Roderick interfering and stuff like that, they decide to go their own way. And in that case, I would say that's probably just the end of Diamond Mine, because that's at that point, what is Diamond Mine? That would just be Roderick and Damon and Ivy Nile for now. But I don't know. Again, it's kind of been an ill-fated group, because from the start they had Tyler Russ and Hideki Suzuki. They got released, then bringing the Creed brothers, and Malcolm Bivens was there from the start. But then releases, stop and start pushes. Roderick Strong was the champion. Then he was just not used for a while. Hopefully this will be good for the group. Again, I think Kemp has a good look. He's got that again. He's Gable's. It sounds bad as he's Gable Stevenson's brother, but that is something. Something that he has that kind of pedigree, and they listed his own accolades. So I think he's a good fit for the group. So again, this is just one segment. I can't really evaluate it based on that, but I think it's a good move for Damon Kemp to kind of not revive Diamond Mine, but at least give it some fresh energy, and for Diamond Mine to get a new member. I think this is also a win-win. So happy to see that. And I was just thrown for a loop because I really thought it was Gable Steveson for a second, and that would be very cool. Albeit an unexpected surprise. We'll kind of let it play out, I guess, and that's a dangerous thing, because sometimes WWE that it doesn't always work out. But because we only saw this very brief segment tonight, can't really say much more. Well, might as well bring it up. We had several vignettes for Ivy Nile of the Ivy Nile challenge tonight. Ivy Nile, the other member of Diamond Mine. I think we have 4 or 5 of these just sprinkled throughout the show. Ivy Nile doing these fitness challenges, pull-ups, and I don't even know what they're all called. Pull-ups, push-ups, some kind of bars and stuff, and burpees, another one as well. All to prove that Ivy Nile is a beast. and she's awesome in that regard. I think it was like 4 or 5. I thought it was a little overkill. I was like, all right, like we get it, like okay. Not to say that like 3 versus 4, and 4 and 4 now I'm upset, but like by the last one I was like, all right, we don't need to keep circling back to this, but good to have her be featured on the show. And again, good to kind of she had to, because they are kind of like regrouping as for Diamond. They're trying to figure out who they are now, and for Ivanel in this case, this is her chance to kind of be featured a little more individually. Brian says Ivy deserves a push, and likewise, Eddie says Ivy has the look and the skill to be the future of wrestling. We really haven't seen a whole lot of what she can do in a lot of ways. She's just kind of been. And we've seen her in some matches, but just like it feels we haven't really seen. I haven't gotten a chance to really evaluate her as an in-ring competitor, so hopefully we'll get to see that at some point soon. John, any thoughts on the Ivanel challenges here?
I didn't really understand the point of it or what they were trying to prove, so not really.
Yeah, I think the point was that she's an athletic beast, and in that regard, cool. Just maybe if they do it again, one of it will get the job done. But we've been talking all about the women's division again. It was very cool to see it featured all throughout the night. We'll talk about the main event in a minute. Some other non-women's division things here. We had Joe Gacy cutting a promo. Joe Gacy came up short at Spring Break-In last week. Good match with Braun Breaker. After the match, weirdly enough, the show ended with Breaker standing tall, and then they released like a digital exclusive where he got attacked by like Gacy's goons, and then he got kidnapped, because the show opened tonight and he was like surrounded by Gacy's goons. And it should be noted that Breaker did not appear on the show tonight otherwise, like no promos, no nothing. So Gacy gets a promo, and he was talking about how he's been recruiting members for his movement, talking about how he's trying to like change NXT, change the world, and being same thing as he used to get, being inclusive, all these things. He was talking about losing to Breaker, and then he offered Breaker the chance to join his group, to join the movement, and work with him. And he was very heavily talking about he had the two goons in the ring with him, and they're wearing hoods, so we could not see who they were. I thought the point of this was to have him reveal who these people were, and he didn't. So we have no idea who these people are. Steven wonders who they could be. I don't know. If it's anybody that we have already seen, my first admittedly random thought tonight was Grizzled Young Veterans, because they were on NXT for a while and they haven't been seen for a couple weeks now. If it's not them, I have no idea. At that point, it could be anybody. But overall, Gacy gets a promo, invites Breaker to join the group, and we'll hear from Breaker next week. We'll answer Gacy's invitation to join the group next week on NXT 2.0. Any thoughts on this promo from Gacy and the very clear continuation of the story with Braun Breaker?
There isn't really much to this feud, I don't think, besides revealing who the two stars are under the hoods. Gacy's already lost clean to Breaker, but he plays mind games, but then he loses the match. The two didn't really have a good enough match or a long enough story to revisit this, even though they're going to anyway. I'm not sure if they just don't think anybody else is ready or everybody's just doing other stuff. I don't really understand any of that, but you know, the video package I thought was pretty good, with the kind of unique factor of them kind of driving him out to a segregated area and dropping him off and letting him there. And this whole time I'm thinking, like, when they're filming this stuff, like, what if like an average person just like comes strolling through and then just sees this going down? Like, what are they gonna think? It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're gonna revisit this match, but I don't think they should.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think the Spring Break match was bad. I think it was good either. I mean, I wasn't like really particularly liking the storyline leading into Spring Break-In. I thought it was fine. I think Ace is still playing his part very well. I've been impressed with his character work overall. But the problem we were talking about kind of heading into Spring Break-In is like I didn't feel any reason to believe that Gacy could beat Breaker. And so, and even now, that hasn't changed. Breaker already beat him, so I'm not really thinking that even that I would assume it will be a rematch. I don't see Gacy winning, but Brian Everett, he thinks Gacy could be the one to dethrone him. I mean, anything's possible, but I don't really see it myself. I really do think Breaker has become he's reached the kind of level where like whoever beats him is going to be like the next guy for NXT. I'm assuming whoever beats Breaker, like that would mean Breaker's moving to the main roster. In that case, whoever wins the title from him will be the next kind of flag bearer for NXT, and I don't necessarily see Breaker being that guy, at least right now. But 2 comments about this potential rematch. Eddie's saying it could be some kind of stipulation match, like a House of Horror kind of thing, or something, some kind of just way to shake it up. And likewise, Steven says it'll probably be some kind of stipulation just to kind of make it a little more interesting. I don't know what that would be. If they do a stipulation, hopefully it's something interesting, because not just like a steel cage match or something. Hopefully make it a little more exciting. But it does feel like we're going to get a rematch. They did vaguely announce tonight we are getting NXT in your house. They did not announce when. Cameron Grimes announced that he'll be defending the title against Carmelo Hayes at In Your House, and I did not hear a date for that show. I thought for a second it'll be next week when he said it, because he didn't name a date. It's not. He just said it In Your House, and then they haven't even officially announced it yet. Like, I didn't see any tweets about it. I didn't see anything. So I don't know what's going on there. I would have to imagine it might be later this month, or maybe like first week of June or so. So it just seemed a little weird to announce that without any follow-up. But as soon as we know more, we'll share that with you all. But good segue to say that Cameron Grimes entered after Solo Sikoa came to the ring. Solo Sikoa, everybody loves him. Big cheer. Everyone's chanting Uso. The crowd loves this guy. Everyone wants this guy to get pushed to the moon. And the man who was originally pushed to the moon, Cameron Grimes, comes to the ring, and he's getting cheered. Basically, they're chanting like "You got lucky" or something like that. They're letting this guy have it. They're taking him to town. And very clearly, they don't want to see Cameron Grimes retain the title. NXT crowd's weird, man. I don't know why he's getting booed. Brian's asking. I mean, I think we talked about this
because they like Solo more. When Solo's in the ring, everybody else is getting booed.
Yeah, and to me, it's just so weird. Like Solo's become this like monster babyface where like everybody loves the guy. I like him. I've been impressed by him, but like there's some kind of a little bit of a disconnect where I'm like, I don't know if I see him like to that level, but like people are ready to like have this guy be like this next breakout star. I don't know. I do think he could at least get a North American title run, at least in the short-term future. As I said, Cameron Grimes said he'll be defending the title against Carmelo Hayes at In Your House, because Carmelo has not gotten a singles rematch yet, which is fair. And then Cameron said once he wins that one, he will give Solo first shot at the title, which is fine. I think that'll be a good match as well. But yeah, I mean, Eddie's saying the crowd clearly wants Solo to be the champion. He's got that connection to the bloodline, and they're literally chanting Uso at him. At this point, I would imagine they very well might ride the hot hand and give him the title. Maybe at like North American Bash. Sorry, maybe at Great American Bash in like July or something. If they do that, like if In Your House is like later this month, maybe draw it out a little bit. Or again, they might kind of go with it when it's hot and just give them the title at some point in the next couple of weeks while the crowd's still really feeling it. Because this crowd's volatile, man. They'll turn on you with a drop of a hat. Like Cameron Grimes was once the hot babyface, and then now he's getting in there booed against Solo here. But John, any thoughts about this? Both with the looming title match with Carmelo Hayes, and then with Solo Sikoa being the next in line potentially.
I think for this next match, Grimes will win, and then Solo Sikoa will win after that. And then we may see Carmelo upgraded to the main title if all goes well.
Okay, I could see it. Steven, though, says he wants to see Carmelo Hayes get the title back, the North American title. I mean, he had a good run with the title. I don't know. I mean, you see people get titles back all the time, but like I do think maybe the best move for him would be to move up to the main to the NXT title. I do question, like, I guess it depends on some of the other factors, like what's going to happen with Braun Breaker, what if he gets moved up, when that might be. I think the timeline's a good question there. But because I think he might be, we were just talking about earlier, I think he could be the guy that beats Braun Breaker, and he could be the next kind of main guy in NXT. And getting North American title back may not be the best to do that right now. I do think he's kind of like not fallen by the wayside, but he's felt a little aimless since he lost the title. Like he was in the three-way with Solo Sikoa and Cameron. That was a very good match, but like it feels like he's lost a little momentum there. So in a way, maybe giving him the title back would be a good thing. But I'm enjoying Cameron Grimes' title run so far. I'm also enjoying the feud with Tony D'Angelo and Santos Escobar. John, this stuff is right out of like The Godfather. Like tonight, it reached like full on like mob warfare. We had last week we had Galante, I forget, AJ Galante, he got kidnapped by Legado. Man, do not go to the NXT parking lot. It is the most dangerous place on earth. People get kidnapped. There's so much bad stuff happens there. Like, just don't go there. That's why AJ got kidnapped tonight. I forget what they renamed him, but Raul Mendoza, like something Cruz, like I don't even know. Whatever his name is, he got kidnapped tonight as well. Tony's goons were sitting in his car, and he got kidnapped. And then later in the show, Santos called Tony, and they were just going back and forth, and they talked to each other. And it was shot in a very like cinematic way, and they just like camera cuts and all this stuff. Very, very dramatic. They're talking about, oh, we're going to handle this like men next week. And at first, I didn't quite know what that meant, but as you might hope, they will have a singles match next week. So potentially the blow, maybe not the blow off fight, but the first big like escalation of like, okay, this is the first time they're actually going to have a match. So potentially maybe that'll be a match, and then maybe like the blow off at in your house, whenever that might be. Brian says that match will be the match of the night. I mean, I'm enjoying this. I think it's a lot of fun so far. In a way, I've made it very clear. I'm a huge fan of Santos Escobar, but if they're trying to make Tony D like the new mobster / Don of NXT, as we've seen with NXT 2.0, it feels like the new guy is probably going to get the rub here. So that he'll be the new leading mobster, I guess, of NXT. But John, thoughts on the because we haven't gotten to talk about it in the past couple weeks, the ongoing like mobster kind of thing here we've got going, and heading into next week when the two Dons / leaders finally collide.
First of all, the phone call was hilarious and very inappropriate for PG TV, but they did beep out what they had to. Now, it should be a good match next week between the two. This clearly is just the start of this. It's going to go on for a while, so I could see a DQ of some sort next week, or an interference, or like Steven says, maybe a 6-man tag at some point. But this is just the beginning.
Yeah, and they've kept it interesting so far. So this is one of those feuds that I'm like we were talking last night on Raw of like there are a lot of feuds that they get dragged on too long and then they're not interesting. This has been one of those like dynamic stories. It's become more interesting, and it's like it keeps going and evolving. And so I'm entertained, and I like the idea of it continuing here. So yeah, as you said, whether it's a DQ or something, or you get the goons involved and do a 6-man or something, I think there are a lot of ways to kind of keep it going here, and then to finally do the final blow off a little bit down the road, because it feels like we're just starting to scrape the surface of what they can do with it. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's been a fun story so far, and hopefully they have a good match next week. But I could also see them doing a pretty quick DQ to kind of hold off on the full singles match for the finale, I guess. But otherwise here, one thing to talk about. We had a Nathan Frazier promo. He got cut off by Zion Quinn. And Nathan, my man, he asked a fair question when Zion said something he didn't understand. Nathan, being from the UK, was like, what does that mean? And Zion like just bit his head off. He like got upset with him. And then Wesley showed up and like had defended Nathan Frazier. Wesley, formerly of MSK, set up a rematch with Zion Quinn, who beat him a couple weeks ago. So that'll be a match for next, I believe it was advertised for next week's show. So hopefully Wesley wins there. We were talking about it before, after the MSK kind of forced breakup, I guess. But like I've been hoping to see Wesley get a fair shot just as a singles guy. And he lost his first showing against Zion Quinn here. Hopefully he'll get the win back there. But thoughts on any of these three, John?
Man, I don't even know where to start when it comes to these guys. I mean, where do you like? What do you think? What do you think about this whole thing? Like, I don't even know what to say.
Like I said, I guess for me the big point is that I just hope that Wesley gets a fair chance, because he got
Willie, that's the thing. Like, they've teased that he's going to, but like he hasn't yet. It's been like basically trying to poke fun at the situation without actually poking fun at it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I mean, they gave him. I like the video package he had a week or two after NASCAR's release, where he was talking about like obstacles in life and trying to kind of emerge from them stronger. Thought that was pretty good. But again, losing his first match kind of after this split of MSK, not the best start. And otherwise, yeah, this is, as I can recall, like the first time we've really seen him. I think he had like the match with Zion Quinn, then he had the promo, and then I don't think we've really seen him since. So not exactly like a good sign. They're like, oh, they're kind of really invested in this guy, and they're gonna push him, and hard to feel really optimistic about it. Zion Quinn, still remember him when he did the karaoke thing when he was feuding with Robert Stone. So I think he's got a great look, but like that's just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. So I don't know about that. I've been
That's fair.
I've been impressed with him in the ring. I don't want to see him necessarily beat Wesley twice because that's not good for Wesley. Nathan Frazier, bit of a weird, like, I don't know. It was weird to have him here. Well, he was kind of like plugging NXT UK when he's not there anymore, and then Zion and Quinn showed up, and that's when Wesley interrupted as well. But we'll wait and see how that goes. I was very impressed with Nathan Frazier's debut, and I think he could be definitely a bright star for NXT. But I think that of Wesley as well. So hopefully he'll get the win there, because having 2 losses like that right away, not the best way to start a singles career there, or a singles run, at least on NXT. Brian saying he feels bad for Wes. I mean, yeah, very, very unfortunate situation, all things considered. And Eddie says he's been lost in the shuffle since Nash Carter got released. Nash Carter, worth pointing out, he's already getting booked for indie shows, so he's already getting ready for his post WWE career in that case. And then while Wesley hopefully gets a chance to shine in WWE, because he's still there. So DJ points out we're talking about the women's tag titles earlier. It's hard to monitor some of the digital stuff during the shows because we're trying to give the show my attention. But DJ says on the digital side of things, Caden Carter and Katana Chance, formerly known as Casey Catanzaro, apparently are upset because they're overlooked and passed on contending for the women's tag titles, seemingly suggesting a heel turn, which is interesting because they seem like very clear baby faces. And the champions are heels right now, and they don't really have all that many other teams, but they have been together for a long time. I think it's been like well over a year as baby faces. So if they want to kind of shake it up and do something different and extend their shelf life as a team, seems like a good way to do it. Again, just a weird kind of situation overall in that case, because the champions are heels right now, and it doesn't feel like that they would kind of do the heel versus heel kind of thing, but I think that'll be good for him. We haven't gotten to see them be heels yet, so I can't really speak to whether or not I'd enjoy that. But I think, as I said, it's a good way for them to kind of shake it up. So I think that could be good and beneficial. But otherwise, here we had the main event: Natalya versus Cora Jade. This was definitely promoted as like a big main event. They've been feuding for a couple of weeks now. Natalya, obviously on the main roster, coming down in NXT. They had a very hard-fought match. Definitely a good showing for Natalya, as always. Very, very underrated. Cora held her own with a very respected and established veteran. In the end, after a very, very good, very hard-fought match, Natalya got the win, not via a traditional submission. Cora Jade passed out in the sharpshooter.
Ref stoppage.
Stoppage. So I thought that was weird, if only because I don't know. My mind went to like the classic WrestleMania 13 thing with Stone Cold Steve Austin passing out in the sharpshooter when he was covered in blood. And like that makes sense. But if you're just kind of passing out in the sharpshooter, like passing out from the pain, like I understand the logic, but that took me out of it a little bit because it was like she passed out like after like a standard match where it's like at WrestleMania 13 they're in this brutal like hard fought war. At least hardcore for the time, and this is like just a kind of a normal singles match. Seemed a little weird to me, but at the same time, I will say, it was a little different. It wasn't the usual roll up or otherwise kind of wonky finish. And then after the match, Natalya shook hands with Cora Jade, kind of suggesting that I don't know if we're gonna get a rematch, but then Cora could say like I never tapped, so that's an easy way to run it back. Brian says Cora passing out was a good way to make her look strong because she did not tap. I think that was probably the motive there. I think that makes sense. But lots of praise. We had 2 people saying Cora is the future of women's wrestling. DJ and Eddie both saying that. John, thoughts on the main event and the outcome here and where we might be going forward with it?
I think this was exactly what it was promised it was going to be. This, I thought, was Natalya's best effort in a long time. Her best match in quite a long time. This allowed Cora Jade to possibly have a dream match. You could tell how much this match meant to her. They looked good in the ring together. They meshed quite well. There was some good sequences back and forth. Now, don't get me wrong, Cora Jade still has some learning to do to get to the top of the division, but there's no doubt she's getting better every time she's in the ring. She was in the main event. She looked like a main event talent tonight for NXT. So I think they should revisit the match down the line, but I'm not necessarily sure that it would make sense due to the hugging and respect afterwards.
That was my first instinct, and now think about it a little bit. I think there's a way they can do it, admittedly in a kind of an interesting way, like not the usual storyline where it's like now they were at first it was a feud of like, oh, like Natalya turned on her and it was a very like bitter feud, and now it's a matter of okay, now Natalya shook her hand and Core didn't tap out, so then they have a rematch of saying, okay, you earned my respect. And Jade saying, "Well, I didn't tap out, and I like so kind of setting up the motive there for a rematch." And to make it even more interesting, I just said they could do like a submission match because Cora didn't tap out. That'll be interesting, but Cora is not someone who's been built up as a submission wrestler, and that's my hesitation when you have submission matches. Like usually, I would prefer that for two people that are very distinctly submission wrestlers. But I think that would make sense. If it were still like a blood feud, I would say like I guess like a last man standing match thing, or maybe like a 2 out of 3 falls kind of thing. In this case, being less of a grudge match at this point. But Steven agreeing, saying maybe a submission match at in your house, whenever that is. I still don't know. But well, I mean, I think that'd be a good idea. I think that makes sense. Again, maybe in the next couple of weeks, if in your house is a couple weeks away, they can have Cora win some matches with a submission to kind of establish that at least she can. I think that would definitely make sense. DJ says she did a last mission on the Indies, so you could see it happening. Admittedly, I don't have the frame of reference, so I'll take your word for it. Because again, we haven't seen her do a whole lot of submissions, let alone like winning a match with a submission during her time in NXT so far. So again, that's my kind of hesitation with that. But on paper, I think it makes a lot of sense. One point I do want to say, shout out to NXT. Tonight, I think they announced pretty much the full card for next week's show. We already touched on most of the matches. The only thing we didn't mention, we were going to see Solo Sikoa and Cameron Grimes face Kamala Hayes and Trick Williams. Otherwise, we touched on the Creed brothers. We touched on Santos and Tony, Wesley versus Zion Quinn, and Braun Breaker and St. Joe Gacy. And obviously, the women's tournament will continue as well. I love NXT doing that. Like with Raw and SmackDown usually announces something. Sometimes Raw will not announce anything till the day of the show. So I always appreciate, just as a fan, not even as someone that writes about the show, but just as a fan, having stuff to look forward to. It's like I like to know exactly what I'm going to be getting. So thank you, NXT. Thank you for actually announcing what we look forward to, because that way you kind of just you know what you're getting into. So just want to take a moment to say that. But all in all, John, a fairly eventful show. Eddie again pointing out was like a women's division takeover for NXT today. Fairly good show. All in all, good matches, good story progression. All in all, I would say it was pretty solid. What would you say about your rating for the show?
I'd give it a 7, an average 7, a pretty average show. Nothing spectacular, but it certainly hasn't been as bad as what it could have been.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. There's some things I didn't love all that much, but again, I guess for NXT 2.0, that's kind of par for the course these days. But I think again we're far away from where we used to be with some of the dark days of the early NXT 2.0 era. So I'm regularly enjoying it for the most part. So I think I'll go for a 7. There was nothing that like I objectively like hated or anything. There's some things I didn't love, but good matches, good main event. I've enjoyed Tony and Santos and stuff like that. So I'll go for solid 7. Steven with a 6.5. Nesha agrees with a 7 as well. Laura with a 9.10 or 9.10. DJ with an 8. So it seems like people are pretty happy with the show tonight. All things considered, pretty good. Again, no idea when in your house will be, but that's what we can look forward to building toward in the next couple of weeks, presumably. Again, if I had to guess, they just had spring break-in, so I'm gonna, with no backing to support it, I'm gonna predict like that'll be like the first week of June or so, or maybe like the second.
I would agree.
Something like that. I don't think they're not going to do 2 in 1 month, so that's my prediction, and then that would give us a couple weeks to build toward that. And we already saw some of the direction toward that show tonight, and we'll wait and see how it plays out from here on out. But we'll be here every step of the way. John is back here on the post show for Raw and NXT. Then we're glad to have you back, John. Obviously, surgery sucks, so very glad you're feeling better and on the other side of it here. So we're back on track. Monday for the Raw post show, Tuesday for the NXT 2.0 post show. Robert and I, schedule permitting, do the SmackDown post show on Friday nights. Otherwise, 2 Diamond Dudes on the Rampage cover all things AEW. Beyond that, always a great stream of interviews. Bill Pritchard recently interviewed former Impact World Champion Moose, Speedball Mike Bailey, the Good Brothers, bunch of Impact stuff ahead of Rebellion, the pay-per-view at the end of April. And we'll always have a great stream of stuff coming at you. So make sure to leave a like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Thank you all so very much. as I always say, Nessa, again, pointing out Nessa, her kind words saying that thank you for, she's glad you're feeling better, John. Says it wasn't the same without you. And I agree. Definitely not saying without you, John. Very, very glad you're feeling better. And surgery is not a good time. So I got to have you back. And with that said, now, especially now that John's back, we all come together to do one thing above all others, my friends, and that is to enjoy wrestling. Thanks for listening, everybody.